it really is a thrill for many of us on this call and screen who know Hector, know his international work on behalf of ending torture and advancing peace and justice. I told Hector recently that I have an indelible memory of his performances in portraying the cruelty of torture which he and his family were subjected to. I was so thrilled to learn that he is keeping up the work. Uh, I can feel we've spread the mission of ICUJP around the world. And I would encourage Hector to weave into his remarks as much autobiographical comments to catch us up to date on what he's been doing over the last several years, what he's doing now. And it's a measure of Hector's impact that he has gathered people literally from all over the country, all over the world today. So with that, Hector, you have the floor.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to everybody, and thank you to the two people that responded to a very short message I placed on Facebook this morning. So I was not expecting anyone to show up, but thank you, Jasmine, and thank you, Ojan, for being here. And Jasmine and Ojan, maybe you have no idea where you fell into. These strange, beautiful people here, ICUJP, are the first group of people that I met that came together from different organizations, in this case, faith organizations. And my first coming to this meeting was, can really Jewish people with Muslims and Christians, so-called Christians and non-Christians and Friends committees and all these different groups come together and dialogue? And not only come together, dialogue and listen to each other, but come together to do things together. And ICUJP for over 20 years, as Susan mentioned, has been able to do that. And that was the reason why for many years I woke up very early in the morning every Friday to go to a cold basement to drink bad coffee. No, it was very good coffee. and listen to these people, you know. And I'm very happy to see that some very young faces are coming also to the group, and that the older folks are becoming younger with the work. That's also a very good sign. But this was like one of the first places where I noticed that we could have what John Paul Lederach has called improbable dialogues, improbable encounters, not improbable people, but people that otherwise might not come together. And that was one of the lessons that I learned from attending the meetings at ICUJP that have informed the work that I'm doing right now here in Colombia. So that's like an initial introduction. Uh, we all were in many demonstrations. I remember in LA for against police brutality, the causes around Palestine and Israel, the situation there, the violence, and many other struggles that you name in your introductions. And thanks to that, and I was happy to hear also the reflection about the mothers, because I am happy to be with so many activists like you and know that none of you are under death threats. Because today, every meeting that I have with people who are activists here in Colombia, at least half of the people have their bodyguards with them. And many of them said, you know, they are my bodyguards, but I don't know if they are my killers. They will be the people who will end up killing me. And it's hard to live in a country where if you are a human rights activist, if you are a defender of the rights of the earth, which is the work that I'm doing mostly right now, you can be killed. And that's why since the signing of the peace agreement, more than 1,200 people have been killed in Colombia. And most of them have been activists who are protecting their territories from the big transnationals and from the trade, the drug trade, and the new groups that have formed after the signing of the peace agreement between FARC and the government. And I'm going to throw a lot of things, which I hope will be enough for us to have a dialogue, which I think is much richer and more dynamic. So those are the people I'm working with. And in the last week, you probably have seen the news, the government in the middle of the worst moment of the pandemic, when more than half of the population of Colombia is living under poverty, has launched a tax reform to gather over 6 billion, 6 billion pesos, not dollars, but no, $6 billion, I'm sorry, to pay our external debt and to supposedly help 3 million of the most impoverished people, something that is almost ridiculous because the money to feed those 3 million people will be nothing. But we know what this tax reform was really seeking was to continue draining and enriching the most powerful people in this country. And people are just tired of it. Many people of all different classes and all different parts of society came out into the streets. And in the last 8 days, 31 people have been killed. So there are 31 fathers and mothers crying their children, families crying their children, most of them young people. 28 of them have been shot. One of them, a policeman, has been killed. And then there has been lots of looting and lots of vandalism. And I don't know if you have seen the media, but the images are just too painful to watch of police shooting at people at close range, police coming at night in especially the barrios of Cali where most of the killings have taken place, are shooting at peaceful demonstrators, etc., etc. And all the images that the right wing has been showing of the looting and the attacks on the police, which are also true in some parts of the country. But most of the demonstrations, at least the ones I had been in, had been with people playing music, with symphonics, with batucadas we have some of the best batucadas in the world, with lots of energy, with people singing and chanting, and people saying no to this government and no to this tax reform and no to the sabotage of the peace process and no to the killing of human rights activists and environmental activists, etc., etc. So this is more or less the situation in which we are working right now. But today I really want to talk to you about the work that I have been doing since I returned to Colombia. As many of you know, I was forced to exile in 1989. I remember the day because the year because it was the year of the collapse of the Berlin Wall. It was the year of the assassination of the Jesuit priest in La Universidad de San Salvador. It was the beginning of SOA Watch. Lots of things happened that year. And then I lived for 28 years. I was 28 years old when I got to the United States. I was 28 and I wasn't counting when I decided to return to Colombia. And I decided to return to Colombia when I witnessed that the peace process seemed to be going in a very different direction. And finally, we were able to reach an agreement. Half of the country was polarized and signed a referendum against the agreement. However, the country was able to sign this peace agreement. And I decided that, I understood that what I have been doing in my work around the world has been training myself to be able to return to Colombia, something that was not in my mind for many, many years, especially when in 1998, when my brother was kidnapped, tortured, and killed by the paramilitary groups. Then I was poisoned. I felt that I could never return to my country. But when the peace process was signed, I realized that what I had been doing all these years had been training myself to be able to return and meet with ex-combatants from all sides paramilitary people, guerrilla people, army people, and listen to their stories and try to heal with them. When I left Colombia, I was terribly wounded as a person. My soul was filled with hatred and anger and despair and the desire for revenge. But my experiences in the world, and especially in the United States and with organizations like yours, allow me to heal my wounds and now return to Colombia 4 years ago to bring some of the things that had been the medicine that has transformed and transmute my anger, etc. So since I came back here, it was not easy because when you leave, you leave. It was not easy to come back and to find a way to survive. I was happy to find love. Love is always like what helps me survive most of the things in my life. I don't know why, but that's the way it happens. So I reconnected with the person that I had met before I left, and she was doing very well. And she said, "Look, live with me while you discover what you're going to do." And I'm very appreciative of that. And so one of the things that I have been working with is a project called Re-Conectando. And this is a process that we created, a project that we created to accompany the world of the work of the Truth Commission. We do not work directly with the Truth Commission, but everything we're doing is to serve the mandate of the Truth Commission, which is to clarify what happened to us in the last 52 years since the guerrilla FARC was created, the oldest guerrilla group in the world, and to create conditions for the convivencia, the living together of people, and conditions for no repetition. What I have learned from my experience and the work that I have done with so many different communities in many different parts of the world is that if we don't want to repeat, if we don't want to kill, we need to heal. Because when we don't heal, we continue the killing. Somehow the psyche continues reproducing the conditions for the healing to take place. And when it doesn't happen, we repeat ourselves. Not only like one of my former clients said to me, why do I keep marrying the same person with a last name? That happens in the personal level. At the cultural and social level, that also continues happening. I think is one of the main examples of that is what's happening in Israel and Palestine. But it's happening also in Colombia after many, many, many years of us killing each other and not being able to heal those wounds. Talk about the United States wounds and the lack of healing also, and why it continues leading us to creating conditions for more killing. So when I came back, we created this project, and the project simply uh, has several intentions. One is we bring together people from all different fashions that have been engaged in the war. So we bring ex-combatants from all the groups and their victims from all the groups, as well as community leaders and leaderesas. They call the women here lideresas. So community leaders and environmental leaders. And we engage using the work of Joanna Macy, the work that reconnects, deep ecology. We bring them to reconnect mostly with the earth, with the Mother Earth. And through that reconnection, we reconnect to our own nature, to our own soul, and we reconnect to each other. Because what we have found is that most of these ex-combatants are all former peasants, are all people from the poorest areas of the country that had no other choice, or because of the desire to revenge the killings of people in their families, they became guerrillas against the paramilitaries and the army, or they became paramilitaries against the guerrillas and all the atrocities that all these groups had committed during the war. But at the end, they are all the same. So it's very beautiful when we come together and we're able to create conditions for each other to listen, for us to listen to each other's stories. The the connectivity that happens between them, the capacity to ask for forgiveness, the capacity to hold the story of the other person, the capacity to find the imagination enough to see that the other person is also a human being and also has a life and deserves to live it, takes place. So what we're creating are spaces for imagination and spaces for healing. So we use the word that reconnects, we use theater to imagine what is the world that we want to create. And then we do healing rituals. For me, ritual is the place where humanity has always tried to heal. And ritual is the place where we experience things that we always needed to experience, but we could not experience alone. So there are lots of stories about disappear, lots of stories about what we had to leave behind, because more than 7 million people have been internally displaced in this country. We hear all those stories, and then we create rituals to bury our dead, to paint our bodies with mud, and then go into pristine rivers and ask the river to take the skin of the war and the skin of our woundedness. And so we were able to be reborn, and things like that. So it's very simple rituals that we create with each group in order to heal together. From that work, and I would love to maybe show you a 10-minute video. There are plenty on our website on Re-Conectando, but this one has subtitles. And I felt that it will give you a taste of how we do this, how we use nature, how we use storytelling, and how we use theater, and how we use ritual in our attempt to heal with each other and to create conditions for the Truth Commission to be able to do its work in the communities. So maybe if you want me, I can share a short video. I hope that it can see well. If not, I will give you the link.
Confiar, es difícil, pero hay que confiar si queremos transformarnos. En la herida está la medicina. Si tú no abres la herida, nunca vas a sanar.
Hoy, más que nunca, cuenta esa confianza que podemos depositar en el otro.
Por eso, mi forma también de sanar fue dedicar mi vida a los niños y a los jóvenes.
Yo no sé cómo puedo vivir tan tranquila después de tantas cosas.
Solamente, hermanos, perdón, les pido a ustedes también y que me perdonen. Yo quiero hoy decirle a Eduardo que reconozco ese daño causado. Estoy arrepentido de haber hecho parte de una organización que le hizo tanto daño a la gente y a mi propia gente. Que quiero de corazón pedirle perdón y que quiero que ustedes sean testigos de mi perdón y de mis palabras que salen del corazón. Eduardo, mis palabras no van a devolverte tu familiar, tu padre, que lo perdiste siendo un niño y que esas mismas circunstancias te llevaron a cometer errores en tu vida. Pero hoy quiero de corazón pedirte perdón e invitarte a que seamos esa luz para esos que no tienen luz, que sigamos recorriendo caminos que no hay camino, pero sigamos construyendo ese camino de la reconciliación.
¿Empezamos para perdonar?
Colombia nos necesita más.
Siento dolor porque mi comunidad, mis tradiciones se perdieron por causa de la violencia, el desplazamiento. Esa armonía que teníamos como comunidad empezó a perderse de la edad de 3 años, 4 años. Me duele lo que viví por el desplazamiento, por causa de las guerrillas de la FARC en ese entonces. Luego por las autodefensas Tuve la oportunidad de estudiar. Gracias a Dios, con mi propio esfuerzo, seguí adelante, pude seguir.
La paz siempre ha estado disponible para ustedes. Dialoguen, miren a su alrededor, escuchen el mensaje de la naturaleza todos los días y aprendan a convivir.
Este encuentro, esta aldea, como la llamamos aquí, y que es una aldea que también la llamo yo familia, reconectar familia, yo creo que nos ha cambiado. A los tres que venimos de Llano Grande, nos ha cambiado más y nos ha abierto más el corazón. Nos ha enseñado más de lo que yo he aprendido, de las experiencias, del dolor de la gente, del dolor del llame el que se llame, paramilitar, llámese soldado, bueno, llame el que se llame, pero ha aprendido más que todos sentimos dolor. Todos podemos arrepentirnos y decirle al pueblo no más, desde aquí. Me gustaría que todos nos conectáramos, todos fuéramos de esta aldea, todo Colombia. Qué lindo sería todo Colombia reconectado a la paz, reconectado a la esperanza, reconectado a la voluntad.
Pues tú tienes alas, pues, son tus alas. Héctor, no más cosa por ese lado. Tú puedes, tranquila. Tú tienes alas, son poderosas. Tú puedes, tranquila. Pasos cortos, pero tranquila. Eso, muy bien, tranquila.
Yo creo que esta es la estrategia que a la gente le llega y la forma como comenzar a sanar desde allá, de lo que tenemos allá en nuestras comunidades, porque la guerra también se nos ha robado la cultura, se nos ha robado la esperanza y se nos ha robado. Entonces, esta metodología, reconectando, vamos a seguirlo multiplicando.
¿Qué ven acá? Un inmigrante.
Desplazamiento.
Campesino. Si esto fuera una caricatura en un periódico, esa bolita que tienen aquí, esa burbujita, ¿qué está diciendo?
La nueva esclavitud. Volvió la guerra.
Me toca irme.
De uno.
Refugiado.
¿Qué dice?
Refugiado.
Soy un refugiado. Díganlo, ¿qué dice ahí? Ahí está escrito algo. En esta
desplazado. Regreso a mi tierra.
Regreso a mi tierra. Voy a mi casa.
Soy libre. Soy pobre, pero soy libre.
¿Qué más?
Abandono mi hogar.
No sé para dónde voy.
Retorno a mi tierra. ¿Cuándo acabará esta guerra? Hoy fue un lindo día. Por favor, se mueven. ¿Qué está viendo él allá en el horizonte? Queremos una imagen. Sin hablar, queremos una imagen. ¿Qué ve? ¿Qué está viendo él? Libertad. Personas que lo están esperando. Dolor. Tristeza. Familiares. Esperanza. Alegría. Si esto fuera el futuro de Colombia, ¿en qué transformarían esto? 1, 2, 3, acción. Una imagen, confíen en la imagen. Una imagen de... ¿Qué ven ustedes? Alegría. ¿Qué más ven? Unión, apertura, sonrisa, confianza, positividad, bienvenida, esperanza.
Pero es que la mamá mía es usted, no mi abuela ni mi tía. Mira lo que le pasó a mi hermana por eso. Mira nomás.
No, mami, no. Yo quiero cambiar, voy a cambiar y lo voy a hacer.
Demuéstralo, mira, está borracha esperándola.
Usted sabe que yo sí metida en el alcohol desde que su hermanita falleció.
Sí, pero es que nosotros, ¿dónde estamos? Ella no era solo su hija, estamos nosotros.
Puedo decirlo que en estos 5 días, con este grupo de amigos que nos llamamos Reconectando, creo que está esa medicina que yo estaba buscando, aliados para seguir trabajando por el cuidado de la madre tierra, el cuidado de los niños, la educación de las nuevas generaciones. Para mí eso es muy importante y me siento muy contento.
La paz nunca es.
With the connection, I live now in a rural area, and sometimes, but I think we saw enough of the video to show you, to give you a glance of what it is that we're doing. Because in this video you could see people who we had never seen each other in their lives. There were 3 men from the FARC. And this happened exactly the week in which the new Marquetalia, or the dissident guerrilla from FARC, was created. So these men had been asked to join the dissidents. And they said that because they were in Re-Conectando, they decided we will never do that. There were also this Afro-Colombian man who was an ex-paramilitary. He was forced since he was 18 years old to join the paramilitaries, and I cannot tell you the atrocities that he had to protagonize. And now he is completely dedicated to the peace process. And there was also a woman that was in the paramilitary that was an alcoholic and lost one of her kids, etc. So, but I would love to hear your comments, questions, ideas, and create a dialogue, because I could keep talking and I don't want to do that. So I would love to see what got to you from these images or any of the things that I have been saying, because I would love to hear from you. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was powerful. Looks like we have a hand from Jasmine.
My question is for Hector, how many videos and how much access do the mothers have to the Asian? I know that, you educate a village, you educated, everybody. So how much access do mothers have to your information? Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Well, thank you, Jasmine. I'm so sorry, I could not really hear.
I think she said how much.
The question. Susan,
I think she said how much access do mothers have to your information, to your work?
To the work that we're doing?
I think that was what she was saying. And if it's not, Jasmine, if you can drop it in the chat.
Jasmine, you might get better bandwidth without the video, just audio.
Yeah, sorry, Jasmine. The sound is terrible. So, but if you can ask the question in the chat, I would be happy to hear you. But in terms of how much access people have to this program, not enough. And but the other problem is that we don't have, we cannot receive too many people because the program is quite expensive. We pay for all the expenses of the people who come. So we raise the money through international, I mean, in this case, USAID, although many people criticize that, but OEM, and we are now receiving some help from organizations in Europe, Porticus and other organizations that allow us to do this work. It's very paradoxical. The money coming from the US does not allow us to work with guerrillas because the guerrilla is still, even after signing the peace agreement, is still considered a terrorist group. so it's the contradiction, but we have been able to funnel monies from other places. But thank you, Jasmine, for the question.
Thank
So-
you. And Steve, I think your hand was next.
Yes, quickly. Thank you, Hector. And you may want to defer the answer to this question to the end and after you've talked with others and answered their questions. ICUJP is an intersectional organization in many ways, but in one primary way is that we detect and identify the intersections between American foreign policy and the struggles that are going on around the world. And today, in particular, the struggles you and your colleagues are engaged in. So before we end, and Grace previewed this already in the chat, as an activist organization, and you hinted at that from meeting us almost 20 years ago, we're going to want to be able to do something to take action in a sustained way as a result of what you're sharing with us. And in our case, you're doing the work on the ground, we are back here. So we would like to think through with you, and this can happen today and offline, of where is American foreign policy, where are there allies for peace in America that can be supported through the political system and elsewhere to relieve the suffering and to speak directly to whatever impact the United States is still having in Colombia.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to tell you something. The US government invested $10 billion in the so-called war on terror, the Plan Colombia. $10 billion that were used to create 6,000 falsos positivos during the Uribe administration, 6,000, at least 6,000 that we had proven, people who were killed, dressed as guerrillas to show the US that we were winning the war against the guerrilla. And so our tax money, 10 billion of it was used for that. Since the signing of the peace agreement, Mr. Trump was never allowed the 500 million that was supposed to come from the United States to help with the peace process. I have no idea where that went. And I don't know now with the new administration whether or not we're going to receive any help from the US to build the peace process. But so American foreign policy in the US, in Colombia and most other countries, I mean, you more than any other groups know exactly where that goes. But thank you for that question. I think it would be one that we could continue thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Steve, were you done? Yeah, he put his hand down. Okay, Michael? Oh, wait. Michael?
Well, I think Jimena had her hand up first. I'll wait.
Okay, I was just going in the order they popped up there. Jimena?
Thank you. I have two different questions. One regarding your work with the way you work. I saw you only work with grown-ups. How is the situation with children? Because I am focused in children, but I would like to know how is that dealt in this process now in Colombia, and also in general, how it is. I've been there for many, many years because of similar situations that you lived. Yes, I'm trying to reconnect through these studies, and I'm interested now in children that have no parents or lost their parents through war. And how do you deal with that in your work, or how have you done that before? And specifically with the arts, if you can talk about that. And the other thing is, actually, I'm very interested if you know if the Swiss government is doing something there. I haven't heard that. I work with a person that has a foundation here in Switzerland, Arts for Peace, and we are studying you actually. We are studying your everything what you do, and I came to her and yeah, well, I would like to hear from you about that. Thank you, muchas gracias. Muy contenta de conocerte. He tratado de hacerlo desde hace mucho tiempo.
Bueno, thank you. Well, a lot of this we will have to talk afterwards, but
Okay.
I just want to say that if I have learned anything in my life, I learned it working with children and teenagers, and working in prisons and working with youth. Most of my work of using theater and using the body as the main way of communicating and dreaming has been inspired by my work with teenagers, with gang members in prisons and in Los Angeles. In this particular process, because of the content because people talk about murder, massacres, decapitation, rape, etc., we don't want to expose children to that process, and it would be very difficult to gain the trust of their parents to come. But more and more 18-year-olds and older, or some of our participants have to bring their teenagers so they don't get killed while they come to the meeting, to this process. So we have been able to have incredible young people. In this particular process that you saw, the images, you notice that most of them were Afro-Colombian. There were some indigenous people, 3 or 4 of them. There were some guerrillas, some paramilitares, and some mestizos, as we call it. But now, this year, we are having more and more young people. And one of the beautiful things that happen in the process is that the older generation, most of them are burnout. Most of them are very sick. Most of them can hardly walk because they are carrying in their backs the weight of hundreds and thousands of people who had been victims of the war. And then they get renewed by the youthfulness and the creativity and the arts and the music and the theater and the etc. of the young people. So this is a place of mentoring, where we recognize our elders, and then the elders can see in the youth a new renewed energy. So it's a process of regeneration. And then we can let die that old way of being an activist. Most of them have been victims, direct victims of the war. Then, when the last image that you saw the paramilitary guy walking with a woman, well, that woman at the beginning said, "I want to kill you. I want you dead. I don't know why you are here." And there they were the ones walking the beaches all the time, picking up things, because she understood that this man was also a victim of the war, as her son was. Even though he was horribly tortured by the paramilitaries, like my brother. So she and I also connected because my brother was cut in pieces by the paramilitaries. So yeah, it's very important the work with the youth. Most of the leaders that come to our work are working with youth, and now we call them seeds of Re-Conectando. So we support them in their work with youth and in creating rituals, etc. So that's another aspect of the trio Re-Conectando. One of the aspects is the semillas. In each laboratory, we pick 2 or 3 people and we continue training them in the methodologies that we use, which are basically the work that reconnects, or deep ecology, the work with theater as a form of opening the imagination. You saw some images there of the...
Yes, I have seen a lot of videos of you that you have done.
And then the work with ritual. For us, ritual is fundamental. But at the end, I want to tell you about the latest work that I'm doing of theater. So I don't know, you tell me when we have the last 10 minutes so I can tell you about Territorio Sagrado, Sacred Territory, which is a play that I'm creating right now, which I want to tell you about. Thank you for the question, Jimena, and then we'll talk about...
Sí, gracias.
So,
thank you. Yeah, that, of course, that was of great interest to me as well, working with kids. So thank you. And Michael, back to you now.
Yeah, I also had 2 questions. One, I know that here in the United States, we tend to look at things through a racial lens, but I was curious because my first contact with Colombians was primarily Afro-Colombians who had come here. I taught English as a second language at a number of students, and I'm wondering about that aspect of Re-Conectando. How much has US racism, because I know the US has played a very heavy role in Colombia, affected or impacted Colombian society, and to what extent is that a factor of what you're trying to reconnect or reestablish a sense of identity, embracing the indigenous, the African, other population? The other question I had was about the role of the US military, because my understanding is the US still has military forces in Colombia now, and is also using Colombia as part of its destabilization efforts directed at Venezuela and elsewhere on the continent. If you could say anything about either of those two things, I'd be very interested. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Michael. Just to echo what you just mentioned, I mean, there are 7 US bases in Colombia, and they are very well located around the places where the US corporations have interests of exploitation of our natural resources. I want to tell you this: Colombia, paradoxically, because of the war, we are still the second most biodiverse country in the world after Brazil. The second, and we are just maybe 5-6% of the world's land, and we have 20% of the world's biodiversity. In Chocó, which is just a region, it's not even in the Amazon, in less than 3% of the planet's Earth, we have 10% of the biodiversity. But another paradox: after the signing of the peace agreement, the biggest affection has been nature, because the deforestation has tripled. A lot of international, mostly American, Canadian, and European companies are receiving green light to exploit our paramos. You know that paramos are a form, an ecosystem that produces water. It's the only ecosystem. And Colombia has 57% of the paramos of the world. I just came back from doing a Re-Conectando in Sumapaz, which is the biggest, largest paramo in the world. And the struggle of the people to protect this environment that is vital to, not to Colombia. We have a lot of water. We have enough water to give the world, but for the world. In Colombia and Brazil is the seed or the regeneration of life on Earth. And we know that nature has been a victim of the war, but nature is also the biggest teacher and the biggest healer that we know. So a lot of our work is to bring awareness of the importance of returning to nature as we as humans. Now, what is the role of the United States in destabilizing all the other countries, and the role of Colombia as geographically very well located? You probably know more than I do. This is probably a topic often, but it's used. Our army is the most developed army in South America, thanks to all of you. Thank you. I really, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for paying taxes for that. I do too, I'm sorry. But we are the ones who can change that, because yeah, I know the difference between the US government and the US people. So it took me 3 days after I arrived to the US to fall in love with an American woman, and then I noticed, and then meet people like you. So no, it's been catastrophic even today, and we need to change that. But thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. And Aisha, I think you had your hand up next. And I wondered, Aisha, when we get to the end of the program, the circle, if you might close us out at the end of that with a word.
Maybe.
Oh, got a little
I'm over here crying so hard. I don't even know if I can really speak. There's just something about I don't even know what's happening to me. I'm crying so hard. I just love you, Hector. I love the work that you're doing. And I'll just be babbling if I try to talk. So I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna stop and pass to the next person. I will say one more thing. I needed this cry. I needed this cry. I don't have to know what it's about. I just know I really needed it. I don't like the hardness that I'm feeling sometimes. over the last 4 years in this country, and particularly this last year. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much.
It makes me think, Hector, I wonder if we could maybe just sit in silence for a minute with the pain that Aisha is feeling and channeling, and all of us from, you know, from our brothers and sisters there in Colombia with you.
Thank you, Aisha, for bringing us all together to having presence. Something that we barely do, just the presence to feel the feelings. And thank you for feeding that beautiful ocean with our tears. That ocean behind you.
Yes, thank you. Did you want to respond, Hector?
No, I felt that that is beautiful to bring this awareness from our soul, because this is our soul's work, is to reconnect again with the soul of the world. As Thich Nhat Hanh told someone who asked him, what is the most important thing that we can do right now? He said, close your eyes and hear the lament of the mother, the lament of the earth. And that's why we are connecting. Look, I'm 60 years old, and in 60 years, my soul has witnessed the disappearance of more than 50% of the world's creatures. The world's living creatures that took billions of years to create, in just 60 years, they have disappeared. 200 will disappear today. And my soul is a witness to that. And I live in an anthropocentric life, my entire life. I was a good person doing good things, but I was anthropocentric and I didn't even know it. You know, so this reconnection to the earth, this work that I'm doing, I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for myself. All I'm doing is share with people what is healing me. This is all I'm doing. And since I came back, I bought a piece of land, and now I have planted more than 120 trees in a little piece of land. I'm looking for more. I'm planting my own food thanks to the pandemic. So I'm eating leathers that I need a knife to cut this down leather because they are so different, because they are organic, you know. And every day I use any excuse to go and transplant something. And so now the plants hide from me because, oh, this man is going to change us again. No, hold up. Because I cannot believe I lived without that for so long. For so long, over 55 years of anthropocentric life, disconnected as humanity from the earth, you know, and yeah, these disconnections, humanity from nature, men from women, the right brain from the left brain, mythos from logos, all these things, we are in a moment of integration, and this is a great moment, I think, for humanity.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that, Aisha, and for Hector for that response. And Dick, did you have a?
My question may be in some strange way related to what we're doing right at this moment. What you've said, Hector, has called forth something very deep from within me, and I think from all of us, as Grace said in the chat. And I've been sitting here thinking how you are well ahead of faith communities, the churches, in so many ways. So my question for you is this: what role has the organized faith community, the Catholic Church, and any other kind of faith expression in Colombia had in the truth and reconciliation process and in the work that you are doing as well?
Wow, it's a hard question. I mean, the role historically has been devastating. Actually, of the 6-point-some million people who voted against the plebiscite when the peace agreement was created, 3 million were from religious fanatics. Even their far right wing was surprised that they won. And this took place in less than 2 weeks. That the far religious, the religious right voted against the peace process. There are a few individuals, courageous priests, that speak about the abuses, the killings, and organize the poor in many different places. Um, they don't necessarily say that they are liberation theologians, but they are just people tired of seeing the poverty, the misery, the killings, the oppression. Very few, though. Religious people are all, they, in the most part in Colombia, think that they are the good people and that the bad people are the rest of us. The religious people here have often sided with the status quo and the far right. They all bless themselves as they go out for killing. So very few help, very little help, I'm sorry, in Colombia. However, the biggest founders of our work today are religious communities in the Netherlands, mostly in the Netherlands. They don't even want to appear in our things. They just want to give us the money because they believe in what we're doing, and they give us total freedom. There is an organization called Porticus, which is, I understand, is a Catholic, very rich family from the Netherlands that they don't even want to figure out. So I believe in people. I believe in people, and a few people have survived religion to stay doing good things, and I think you are a great example of that. But you are very unique in the world, in the United States, and here in Colombia. So I wish I had a better answer, but it's no. The help has not been great from the religion, except for very few individuals that dare to use faith as a reconnection to life, as a respect for life, not as a business.
Thank you.
That is unfortunate that in many ways when religion aligns itself with the interests of the state over the interests of God and the people. I wanted to say too, Hector, that as Aisha kind of mentioned too or alluded to, your work puts me in mind so much, of our work to do here at home with the chasms that now divide us and the polarization. And as I was listening to you speak and to your video, I was thinking about how easy it is to blame and flame each other as opposed to opening our hearts and seeing the pain, as you said. And I think Reverend Lawson reminded us of this, the pain that people are suffering, that is internally, that is the kind of the fertile ground that this polarization and attacks and blaming and things come out of, is a lack of recognition and healing for that, which I think is so rich in your work. So just to say, I hope we can take that and channel it back here as well as supporting you there. So thanks. And I see Steve has his hand up again, but.
Well, I only raised my hand to create the space for Hector to come back, whether it was Territorio Sagrado or an issue that you wanted to be sure to raise.
Oh, thank you, Steve. So maybe that means we are coming to an end. But let me tell you, many things have come out of Re-Conectando, bringing people together that otherwise would never be together, and finding each other's humanity in just listening, being able to create spaces for deep listening and healing. So from these people, I chose 7 women, 7 amazing women. And at the beginning, it looks like I chose them by categories, or we, because it's a team of us. So we have an Afro-Colombian woman who is one of the main leaders in a region that we call Buenaventura, which we have the biggest port of Colombia. 70% of the products come in and out of there. And they have 75% unemployment. They have 250 rivers. They have no drinkable water. Anyway, etc. But this woman is an amazing leader there. There is an indigenous woman, Flor, who is in Vera, who is the people who create these things. There were several in the video, young people. And she's the voice of the earth. When she speaks, trees speak through her, rivers come through her mouth. It's incredible, this woman. A young woman, LGBTI, that was appalled by the people who were going to rape her. When they were going to rape her, to show her that she was a woman, not a lesbian, she screamed that she had AIDS. So they took the broom and they did horrible things with her. She's only 23, but she's one of the most powerful, loving, forgiving people I ever met in my life. And another person is a woman that is a leader of an organization called Rios Vivos, which are the people who have confronted the biggest company in this country called EPM, the country that manages the water and electricity, and they create the dams. So she says something like, when they created the dam in the Rio Cauca, the second largest river in Colombia after the Amazons, after the Magdalena, for 4 months, billions of animals cry and scream, and billions of trees were drowned, and no one listened. And she's one other person. The other person is a woman who was kidnapped by the paramilitaries and forced to do the worst things that you could imagine. She now works with children of both guerrilla and paramilitaries who are forced to work as prostitutes. So she takes care of their children. Another woman is a FARC guerrilla woman who created a project called called Remando por la Paz. They learned drafting on their own, and they went to a competition in Australia. They were 17 out of 84 countries. They had never done that in their lives. So can you imagine the heart connected to the body of these people? She doesn't know how to swim, as most guerrilla people. It just blows my mind. But anyway, but she is also there. And a woman who was a victim of La Bomba del Nogal, which was the biggest bomb placed by the guerrilla in a club, and she was paralyzed for 7 years. She went to the United States, recuperated, came back, and now she works with ex-guerrilla victims and the guerrilla. So she's attacked mostly by the victims of the guerrilla out there. With them, and the voice of Mother Earth that we are recording in the most incredible places that I have been meeting in Colombia, where we do this work. We are going to create a play that is going to be premiere when the report of the Truth Commission comes out in November of this year. The Truth Commission was given 3 years, half of the budget that they needed, that has been taken over half because of the pandemic. Supposedly they had the pandemic, and they have, I'm sorry about this movement here, they were unexpected, but then they had been attacked by the government the whole time, yet they are going to bring a report about what has happened to us as a society. The play is going to be premiered at that time to create the conditions. So very soon, probably in a week or two, we're going to launch a campaign to find the funding for this project. That is called Territorio Sagrado. We are calling the sacred territory of women's bodies, of women's integrity, and the earth. Because it's not a secret that the way we have treated women and children is the way we men, mostly men, had treated the earth. To rape it, to decapitate it, to poison it, to exploit it. And then the stories, it's not the stories of now, the story of the paramilitary, or the story of the LGBT, or the story of the indigenous woman, or the Black woman. No, what they have done together in this process of deep ecology and ritual is that we're all one, is Ubuntu. So the main image that has been feeding my work right now is the image of the mycelium. That is the largest organism on Earth, is the oldest and is the newest, is the largest and is the smallest, is as ancient as we are, and is the future. is the mycelium. Sometimes we see it because it produces those beautiful things we call mushrooms, some hallucinogenic, some eatable, some poisonous. But what I feel our work, and I count all of you on that, is that we work with the mycelium of the soul, that we go into pain and tragedy and massacres, and we extract from that what still serves life. So this work that we're doing is that the stories of these women bring out also the medicine that they have found in their lives. And I want to thank again Diane for helping me write that book that we wrote together. The blessing is next to the wound, but now this is like a deeper sinking into what that means. Now I understand better than 10 years ago what that meant. When I did my play that you mentioned, Steve, it was talking about my wound and how I was able to overcome the hatred and the torturer that I had inside of me that continued torturing me all the time. But once I conjure it, it no longer tortures me. And when we work with these women, what we hope is when people see their play and their stories and see how we are also alike, people can start healing each other. I feel that we are in a moment as humanity for collective healing. We have over 100 years of individual practice, individual healing. No, we urge a collective healing, and spirituality is the big revolution that is awaiting all of us. So anyway, so I wanted to share with you about this play that I hope to share very soon. We're creating a trailer. We came together for 10 days, and I'm not rehearsing in a theater. I am rehearsing in rivers, in jungles, in caves. And when you go there with your story, the earth, the mother womb takes the woundedness and buries it. And then there we plant the seeds of the new world, because we are that. We are all the vessels of the new life that is coming through. And COVID has been an incredible teacher for all of us as humanity. The world as it was no longer exists. That we call normal, that was never normal, no longer exists. We're in this liminal space of rebirthing, and we're creating a new world that is different. So the play somehow also resembles that. Yes, Steve.
Susan, could I just follow up quickly?
Sure.
I think you've given us an opportunity. Is it possible eventually for this group to promote the production, to organize fundraising around the production, and eventually see the production online in some form, whether it's the original day or night that you present it, whether it will be recorded and filmed? I feel that you are touching us so deeply, but here is something, and there's been comments like this in the chat about fundraising. So do you think that's possible? And if so, then we'll work on that.
Oh, Steve, thank you.
I put a link in the chat to the Vimeo.
In 2 words, let me tell you what this project is. We are creating the play using a very unique thing called theater of reconciliation. That's how we're calling it. And as I told you, it's not just rehearsing in a dark room telling our stories. No, is the filigrana of our souls talking to each other, and inside the mother's womb. We are filming the process because it's so unique that we want to share this collective healing, this collective reconciliation with ourselves, with each other, and with the earth. And also because the play is very expensive, the women are in different parts of the country. I had to bring them together, and in 10 days bring all the material from them, but also heal each other. Then we're going to come together again in another part to rehearse, and then another 10 days to rehearse. So it's 30 days of rehearsal in different moments. And then we're going to premiere the play and film the play. So the women can use the film of the play to travel across the country and create spaces for dialogue. And this is the way we're going to offer something to metabolize the harsh report that the Truth Commission is writing, because the truths that we're going to receive are going to be so difficult for us as a society to hear, that we want to use art and healing and rituals to help people sustain these truths so we can really heal. So the project has different moments, and of course, it will be amazing to have your support in any way possible to make this a reality. We're doing it, and we're creating the whole project and the way to finance it, and I would love to share with whoever and see how we can. You can be part of this, not help us. I want you to be part of this. I want you to own the project yourselves in any way that you feel feasible. Thank you for that interest.
That's great, and I think, you know, following that, then as you said, we become the semillas, the seeds to, you know, do the work here as well. So it's a great connection. I like that the mycelium, the spores on Star Trek. I'm a little bit of a Trekkie there, so. Grace, you had your hand up.
Have you seen Plastic Fungi, the movie? If not, I will give it to you. I will give you a link and you can share. It's one of the most beautiful films I ever seen. It's a documentary that took 20 years and is incredible. It's fantastic. So I will share it with you guys and you can share it with each other.
Say the name again.
Fantastic Fungi. It's unbelievable. And I bought it so I can give you links to it. Don't tell the...
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Yes, yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Hector, muchísimas gracias. This has been an amazing, we knew it would be amazing and it would be deeply, deeply moving. I think we were not prepared for how deeply moving it really has been and how it's connected to the deepest core of our own being. But it especially resonates with our mission, which is to really seek peaceful ways of getting rid of the violence. And so I think it's just excellent that we could do some partnership with you in some way and be able to then use it more broadly. I think this is a global methodology that you're using that should be in all of our communities. I wanted to ask you about a series that I saw that is Colombiano. It's called La Niña, and it's a documentary about, or I don't know if it's real. I wanted to ask you, but it's a young guerrilla girl. It's the story of her trying to reintegrate into Colombian society and the organization that's working with the youth. Are you familiar with that by any chance?
Oh, Grace, I wish.
Okay, well, look it up. It's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. It's called La Niña, and I found it very, very moving to realize that there's an organization trying to help these kids, and how even after she goes on into medical school, and even in the midst of that, the paramilitaries are after her, you know, and keep her life is a constant struggle. And I think that was a good reminder to me. It's not easy. You know, you can't just come out of these violent backgrounds and then suddenly be back in society. So that's why I think your methodology is one that really does heal at a deep level, all sides, so that you create a moment of peace and justice for the people involved. So thank you. But if you ever have a chance to see it and let me know whether it's true or not, that's what I wanted to know, because I was deeply touched by it. Pero mil gracias. And I hope now that we've reconnected, you are going to be present with us occasionally to keep us updated.
I will. Thank you so much. And yes, one of the main problems, not only of the guerrillas, but the former paramilitaries, is that once they came out, supposedly came out, the society did not change whatsoever. And one of the things that I have been arguing is that you don't spend 20, 30 years in the jungle with a gun that you cannot even live when you're making love. They had to make love with the gun in one hand. This is true. And then we as a society tell them, oh, give us the weapons. And we take a picture of you. And now you are no longer a guerrilla. You are no longer a warrior. Now you are a citizen. Some of these people didn't even know that you pay for water or that you pay, they didn't know that you defecate in water. They say, why? They didn't know that. And now they gave their weapon and now they are citizens. And they are the bad people who need to change. We, the society, are the good people. No, that cannot happen like that. We all need to change. And we need rites of passage to mark that and to honor, even if they were mistaken or whatever, but to honor that life they had as a warrior and to see who they are right now. But we have to change. They gave their weapons. We, the civil society, are still armed with hatred, with anger, with desire for revenge, with so many things. And yes, so it's very difficult. But I would try to see what you're mentioning, La Niña.
I just wanted to say, I'm going to have to jump off in a couple of minutes. Michael's going to take over. Unfortunately, I have another thing I have to do. But I just wanted to say how meaningful it has been. And even, as you continue to talk, more things are connecting in my head, I'm sure, in everyone's. And I was thinking about, as you were saying that, about our police and our soldiers and the same kind of experience that we expect them to just leave that at the door or at the war or at the office, the police station, whatever. And I was thinking also about how challenging it is in that frame to try to find ways to critique and change the system while caring for the people who are the fodder of that, but are often the people upon whom the critique lands and who feel then vilified in a system that has created them, basically their work in war and violent policing.
Yeah, we have to take care of the soul in the soldier. Being a warrior, we don't have many warriors, we have killers. We train our young people to become serial killers, and then they come back and we don't do any process of decompressing them, of finding what happened. And that's why most of the people who had killed themselves are the one able-bodied, not the ones who pay with half of their bodies or their member, their limbs, etc. They are not the ones who had committed suicide, are the ones who never kill anyone, but they kill people, other ways, including themselves. So how we help them recuperate their soul is our job as a society, because they are not the bad people. They had to go through something horrible that hopefully no more people will have to go through.